Evening all, welcome to Prison Architect. Now, this is something I've been waiting for a long time to play. The reason is because I've always liked management games, and I think there's something about building a tower, building a city, building an empire that I've really quite liked. And I think this one intrigued me because, again, I quite the idea of building a prison and managing, the scum of society, executing people, all that piece is quite an interesting concept. So I'm going to play a lot of this, actually. I think this is something that I've played a few games of already, and it's more addictive than crack cocaine injected into the eyeball. It's very good. So let's go through it. Now, you start the game, and first off, it's probably worth mentioning it is still actually a beta. I don't know why I seem to keep playing betas at the moment, obviously with Dust and that. But this is actually still, 100% still a beta. It was an alpha for a very long time, and then all of a sudden it's just been released on Steam. So that's probably a good thing, because I think now it's on Steam, it's a bit more supported and legit. And basically, you're kind of buying early access to it. This costs £20, so I think that could be about $25. And is it worth it? Yes, very much so. Cut right to the chase, it's worth it. If you like your kind of management games, but yet you feel that playing SimCity or The Sims would be too much of your masculinity, kind of trodden onto the floor, then this is a good one, because this is a game where basically you have to manage, triple life killers who are going to try and, hide guns and syringes and knives and shank anybody that they can. And I think it's a real charming game, and it's shaping up to be an absolute blast. So what I'm doing here, and you can see here very quickly, is really this is around, this is almost like the tutorial to a degree. And what we're doing here is we're basically going to build an execution house, which is pretty sad really, because again the tutorial focuses on a particular man, a particular prisoner, who basically you'll see just later on towards the end of the video, you'll see his heinous crime. And I think this is something really quite nice. I love the stylization of the graphics. I love the fact that you do have this this kind of weird you have different levels of resource, and you have workmen who will build things, you have wardens who will obviously police things, you have the prisoners themselves. You can click on every single prisoner and see their backstory. And in the next video we'll look at that in a bit more depth. You can zoom all the way in to see these hardened criminals, and you can even see them get naked in the showers and start to, well, it's bizarre. It's a very bizarre game. You also then have to basically house your prisoners. So basically you have to obviously give them cells. As you can see, there's Malone. Let's make a story for him. Maybe he was a triple lifer for sniffing the seat of an exercise bike in a gym, for example. And you basically have to have a constant influx of people. You have to house them, you have to jail them, effectively. You have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to provide health facilities. You then have to actually run it as a business, so you have to hire wardens. It's brilliant, it really is. And it's a very kind of quick, easy game to understand the mechanics of as well. So there's not a huge learning curve with this game. There is one, let's be clear with that, because it does take a little bit of a while to understand all the mechanics of it, but to be honest, it's not too bad. And I think the basics are prisoners come in, you house them securely, you have to then provide wardens to maintain them effectively. You then have to have all the various facilities, kitchens, workmen to repair things, yards so they can go and exercise. And basically that's it, and it becomes this this very nice and unusual management game. And I think sometimes you can do really well by differentiating your game, and I think they have done this brilliantly with this. There are a few bugs. It's a little bit clunky in certain areas, but they're only minor. I think again, really the only remaining piece that they seem to be doing is adding certainly more content, and I think also maybe just fixing some of the sprites. And it's a game with sprites. It's a 100 meg download. If you're going to run a game on a netbook, or even maybe you know, a very small laptop, I think this is one for you, because again, it's not too demanding on the old facilities. So there we go, here's Donny having his shower. Let's make a story for him. Let's say he tried to sell life insurance to someone and scam them out of their money or something like that. So we'll do a lot more of this, but I think at the moment as it stands, this is a fully working prison that you start in. Now you don't necessarily continue in this prison, you'll actually go to other ones and start to build your own. Really, this is a tutorial, I guess, around building basically, in this case, an execution wing, which is quite morbid, I guess, but and I think I love the fact that it gives you this this kind of, you know, feeling of power over the prisoners as well, which is unusual. Usually, you know, you don't give much. I mean, when you play SimCity, you don't really care too much about the Sims. When you play The Sims, you kind of care about your own sim, but that's probably it. Whereas when you play this game, you're actually kind of a bit fearful of some of these some of these dudes, because you can do random searches and you can find out if they're hiding weapons. You can also see gang fights happen as well, and it's just epic. It really is. I think it's one of these games that, again, I know a lot of people have been watching for quite some time, and you know, you get a lot of this. A lot of people, I talk about vaporware quite a lot, because I think a lot of games out there they're always sold as some very exciting, you know, the next generation stuff, like Destiny, stuff like PlanetSide 2, well, bad example, but stuff like, you know, that necessarily isn't out yet, that people are already claiming is going to be a classic. I mean, that really pisses me off when people say that. And I think a lot of the time when you actually play the game, you're a little bit disappointed, and I think it's really important not to forget that, because games like this, you know, I've watched for a while, and I've certainly seen some of the videos. I've certainly watched some of the development around this game, and you know, your first impression is oh, it looks quite good. I hope it doesn't suck. Now, when this came out, I downloaded it within probably about 20 seconds, and I was straight in. And this was probably, you know, this is literally my first game of it, as you can see here, and I was hooked, immediately hooked, and that's quite unusual. I think it's one of those times, I don't know if you get this, but when you get a game, could be any game, but when you get a particular game that maybe you've been waiting for, and you think to yourself, I hope it's good, and it comes out, and you kind of play it, and then you realize that 3 hours have just gone by. This was pretty much me on this first playthrough. I literally, you know, I got in from work, I turned on the computer, downloaded it, I literally was then looking at a clock that said 10 o'clock at night. It was like, where the hell did that go? And I think that's brilliant. I think that really is a testament to the game. And I think that, you know, it's rare to find a game like that. I'm also quite picky about what videos I do with the channel as well. I mean, I play a lot of games. I've been playing quite a bit of shooters at the moment, and a lot of stuff I don't generally do videos of either, because, you know, I mean, I record most of the stuff I do, but I'm not, you know, I'm not going to kind of just, you know, do a video of anything and just sit there and blabber over it. I would rather make it, you know, relatively interesting. And plus, I think a lot of the time when you do videos and such, if you don't show passion, if you can't hear the passion in my voice and how much I'm enjoying this, then what's the point? So I think this hopefully is coming across. I was really blown away by how good this game is, and it's only a beta still. I mean, that is the best part about it. It's only going to get better. I think in terms of the scope and scale of the game, there's a lot here to do. You have a lot of equipment, you have a lot of functions. Pretty much every single playthrough I did last night ended with a riot that killed everybody, and the prisoners just ran amok. You can call in the emergency services, you can call in paramedics, you can call in fire, you can call in riot squads, and in the end I just didn't have any more riot squads to call, because I think I had something like 40 prisoners, and they just destroyed everything. They killed everyone, destroyed everything. I mean, that's gritty. That's quite gritty, I think. There's also a huge level of customization that you can do with this game. So as you can see here, this is my execution chamber. And what could be nicer with the last few moments of your life when, you know, you're being basically led to the chair than to walk on a wood floor? So I thought that seemed apt. It's probably the most inappropriate thing ever, but it just made me smile. I thought it was, again, lovely choices, lovely kind of feeling of style. Again, not many games have the visual style that really inspires you. and I think this one certainly does. Also, I love the fact that you can, the game scales very nicely. You start off with only a handful of prisoners, 3, 4, 5, 6 prisoners maybe, and it's all about clothing, feeding, looking after them, and managing them. But then all of a sudden, you then start to get more and more. You get more and more people involved. You get psychologists involved. You get accountants involved. And all the way up to foreman, you get everything really, and I think that's really quite nice. I think that's quite an exceptional, part of the game. So here we go. This is Edward. I made a mistake here. I actually made him walk on his own. He was supposed to be escorted by guards, so it takes me a minute to figure this out. But again, this is Edward. This is poor Edward. He's basically done a very bad thing, and he's basically going to be executed. Now the question is, does he not? So there we go, that's what I should have done. So let's send him back there. As you can see, the yard's looking good. All of my crew are out there. There's no fights yet, but again, you do get fights, and then the wardens basically crack skulls. And it's funny watching a great big riot happen, because it gets nasty. And all of a sudden you'll see you'll see people die, and you're actually quite attached to them. You think, wow, that's actually quite tough, that that people are dying here. And there is a severity to the game that I think is quite, I've never seen that before. This guy here, you follow his story to begin with, Edward. And so here we go, let's hear what he did. And it's pretty sad. I mean, it's a bit Shawshank, I must admit, but basically, so we go, we actually even have the story of Edward. And he was a teacher, would you believe? And he basically returned home late from, let's say he was bowling, and he comes into his jail gate-fronted house, not sure why, and he basically goes into the bedroom, wondering what those massive noises are, to find, oh dear, that's bad. So he finds his wife in bed with some other man, but he's got a gun. He knows they're there. He knew he'd catch them. He knew all along. Susan, no, don't do it. What are you going to do? He's going to brandish the gun to his head for some reason. Oh no! Boom. Monster kill. And there we go. Edward killed his wife and their lover. Now you see, in some states, that probably wouldn't be a problem. In the UK, certainly not a problem. You go to just a prison for the rest of your life. But it's called crime de la passion in France. It's crime of passion. But in America, in certain states, that's pretty much you done and dusted. So there we go. That was our first look at Prison Architect. If you want to know what happens to Edward the teacher, because again, his story continues in part 2. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.